without a hint of irony.
Happy Honda Days.
Happy Honda days,
Unless
Ben.
you celebrate Toyotathon.
Yes. I just saw a sketch. Are you familiar, Ben, with a television show called Saturday Night Live? They do sketches,
I want to
humorous
say
sketches.
late night.
There is a Saturday Night Live sketch where a guy buys his wife a Lexus, and she says, "Hey, a Lexus, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, is a brand of car.
It is a specifically a
Different
luxury car.
manufacturers put their names on the car. So, but instead of saying a car by Lexus, it's just a Lexus. So you
Yes.
refer to the car by the name of the manufacturer, in this case, Lexus. And so, yes, he bought his wife a luxury car. Her whole point is that he doesn't have a job and he should have consulted her before making such a purchase. And
Yep.
it's funny.
Yeah.
That is the joke.
I don't remember
Um,
that one specifically, but I do like that is something that I think of every time I see one of those car commercials where they present the car. It's usually the guy presenting the car to his wife. It's in the driveway and it's got this giant bow, Christmas bow on the hood,
yeah,
and that is such a big investment to just drop on somebody.
yes,
Hopefully, you're
yeah.
buying the kind of car they want.
If you share a household, that is a purchase that is going to affect them, not a purchase that you
Yeah,
have made for them. Unless you're rich, in which case, okay, you might
you can
simply
buy
purchase.
cars like a box of Kleenex.
So, um, I get into these loops, kind of, where I get um, interested in something, and I, basically talk about it, and
Ad
uh,
nauseum.
yeah, until people get sick of it. But also, even if there was no one else around, I would spend a lot of time looking into things and all that. One of the things that I constantly go back to, a completely rejuvenating source of interest for me, are cover songs.
Right.
A band doing it, and of course, my favorite cover songs. There are two different types that I really like. One is when a band that I like does a cover of another song by a different band that I like, and then the other one is where someone I've never heard of does a cover of a song that I like, and they do it in a really interesting way, et cetera,
Yeah.
et cetera. Um, you'll be surprised to know that Dragula by White Zombie doesn't have a lot of covers of it.
I've never even heard the original.
Oh, I like it. I like it a lot. Um, so anyway, the reason I mentioned that is that there are other things like Dillinger Escape Plan um, does versions of certain songs. Like they do a version of Angel by Massive Attack. That's good. They do a version of Wish by Nine Inch Nails that I like, etc. And so, and this is a common theme of this podcast about how um, one, AI is bad when it sources from people, when the companies that use AI source it from people without, you know,
Right.
taking those people into account. Now, you've
Proper accreditation.
search the audio on this. You will also hear me say that at some point in time, all AI should just get everything from everything so that it has everything in it, and then there's no copyright because everything is in the AI. I don't necessarily feel
Uh-uh.
that way
That's how
anymore,
that works.
but at one point in time it was. The thing that I'm thinking about is that I realize that when AI becomes sophisticated enough, and we're living in a time when it's gonna be that sophisticated, um, any band that you can name covering any song in existence
Yeah.
can be yours. It will happen. But of course, the thing is, and we've talked about this before, how bands evolve, bands change, and the great example that I think you and I have both talked about is El Oso, because
Yeah.
we were fans of Soul Coughing, and then El Oso came out, and El Oso did some different stuff. There were like I want to say the drum sequence of Monster Man was different. It was played.
I don't have the
You know,
vocabulary
it
to
had sort of a
describe
drum
it.
and bass kind of feel to it.
Yeah, it's. I mean, if you listen to or if you read Mike Doty's memoir, that album kind of came together in a bit of a rush. I think they were like it's that age old thing that bands kind of complain about, right? You have your entire life to do your first album to make it perfect, and then people
Yep.
expect perfection every 6 months.
Well, that was. I mean, I did the same thing to me with Giraffe and Elephant. I sold Giraffe and Elephant to Disney, and I'm like, well, that's great. Now I just have I can do another one of these in a year. That's no problem.
Yeah.
This is my job now. And they were like, no, that's okay. No thanks.
Um,
And so yeah, it was a surprise.
there's another like Pearl Jam, I think, changed their sound a little bit. I'm not really too familiar with their later stuff. I mean, it's still sort of like grungy, but I think for me, it kind of like lost its edge a little bit the further down the road they went.
Hmm.
The biggest band that changed their style that I'm a fan of is actually Stone Temple Pilots. I don't know if you're familiar with their catalog, but
Yeah.
they had two albums, Core and Purple, I believe, and they were sort of like that mid to late '90s heavy grunge, heavy guitar.
Yep.
Scott Weiland, singing grungy lyrics, and then I can't remember exactly what the name of the
Hey, thank you,
third album is.
Jennifer.
Tiny Songs from the Museum Gift Shop or something like that. Tiny Songs from the Gift Shop. A completely different sound. It like Scott Weiland, he totally didn't. Yes, I see your food. Scott Weiland totally got rid of the grunge vocalism and went towards a more like pop vocalization, and then for the fourth album they went back. I don't think think maybe it wasn't a critical darling, but I know what you mean in terms of why or what it sounds like when bands change their tone, change their style. But I think the point you were getting at is that asking an AI to sing a cover song in the style of a certain band won't necessarily take into account how that
Hmm.
band has changed their sound over the course of their lifetime.
Or yep. Or that the band might approach the cover in a different way than the AI would expect. So let me tell you what this is. This is a burger from the High Point. It's their cowboy burger. You know me, Ben. I love a cowboy burger.
It looks like
Um,
it's just made of onion.
it's got onion straws, so like basically like onion rings, but they're straight. Um,
Are they fried?
and two beef patties, bacon,
Oh,
barbecue sauce, and then I also had them fry an egg and put that on top. That's not normal, but it's what I put. And pepper jack cheese. Guess what I don't have?
a napkin.
Napkins. So we'll see how this goes.
You are wearing a t-shirt.
Hmm.
I'm doing laundry. You might actually
But
be able to hear it in the background.
this is a light blue T-shirt though, and
A light blue
so
cheese shirt. I
oh, I don't know why I said speaking of, because it's not really true.
In a
Have you caught
completely
up
unrelated
on?
topic, Paul says,
have you caught up on Fargo yet?
I have not seen this week's episode,
Hmm.
which came out yesterday. Is that right? They come out
Hmm.
on Wednesdays. Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't watch it last night, but I'm caught up until then.
I'm really liking this season of Fargo. It's very good.
I follow Dave Foley of Kids in the Hall fame and now of
Hmm.
Fargo fame on Twitter, and he just reposted or retweeted the new language. I'm not used to it, and I don't want to do it. He retweeted somebody who tweeted at him talking about how his character of Danish Graves is how he seeps into that character, how he oozes characterization from that role, and it's interesting watching him play that Jennifer Jason Leigh's character's lawyer
Hmm.
in that song. In that, well, everything is music if you want to think of it that way. In that role, because I had just finished watching The Fall of the House of Usher. Did you watch The
Yes,
Fall of the House of Usher?
I did.
Mark Hamill plays a very similar type of character where he's this, a personal lawyer slash fixer, um,
He does. That's right.
to a very wealthy family.
And the interesting thing, I think we might have talked about this, but the character that he plays, Pym,
Pym, yeah,
is a character
not
based
Hank
on
Pym.
right, exactly. Oh, I recently watched the Wasp and Ant-Man Quantumania thing. It was good. I liked it. Um,
Well, there's more to talk about it for that. But what were you gonna say about uh, Pym?
oh, so he was the main character in the only novel that Poe wrote.
Mm,
And that thing about them traveling around the world and stuff like that was in that novel. That was when they
yeah.
said that they the backstory about Pym is from that novel.
Right.
Um, but he wasn't part of a contest. He was just a guy who got caught up in globetrotting
He's a
for
very
different reasons.
what's that? Is it Toth the from Raiders of the Lost Ark, the guy who gets his hand burned? I feel like we've already talked about this. I feel like I'm repeating
Hmm,
myself. Um,
maybe.
Mark Hamill, who on Twitter
Mhm.
signs
Yeah,
his name MAR and then an emoji of a camel, which I think is nice.
that was just nice. And
Um,
I don't think you mentioned that on the podcast before because
yeah, that's
I
new
didn't
intel.
I didn't see that, but yeah, that is very clever.
Uh, Quantum Mania, is Kang in that?
Hmm.
Because there's new
Yeah,
development
Greg.
there.
Um. So let's talk about this for just a second. I was talking to Jennifer about, and let's just say this. Paul gonna guess the news. Paul did not know the news at this time. I was talking to Jennifer and I said, and this was true around the time that I said it. I said a lot of people didn't like his portrayal of Kang or the fact that he was Kang. They thought it should be somewhere one else, but I thought that he was doing a great job and that his critics, you know, were motivated by the wrong thing, whatever. Then she found out about the news and thought that was what I was referring to,
Oh
and it
no,
wasn't.
it's a Three's
Yeah,
Company
so
style confusion right there.
exactly. So my whole point was, it's the same thing where people are like, you know, uh, he was never a black man. Why did they cast a black man as him, et cetera, et cetera? That's what I was speaking to.
Yeah,
A thread where that was that is not the problem that people have with him, the
no,
specific actor now.
Yeah.
which
Well,
is too bad.
I think we
Uh,
talked about this recently because we talked about Loki last week,
yeah,
but Marvel didn't
the news came
fire.
out after that, right?
Yes,
Is that right?
it was earlier this week where Marvel actually fired Jonathan Majors from his role as Kang
Mhm.
after he was like 2 out of the 4 charges against him were actually like he was convicted on 2 out of the 4 charges, and so
Hmm.
of like domestic violence, but to
Hmm.
some sort of extreme event. So yeah, now the talk is like, what are they going to do? Are they going to recast Kang? Are they going to go in a different supervillain direction? Who knows? I mean, who like I could be like, oh, I feel sorry for Marvel having to make these decisions, but no, you should never feel sorry for Marvel. You should,
Again, yeah, Marvel and Disney,
yeah.
good
Oh,
problem for them to have. Oh no,
yeah.
we we have to make a creative decision based on, distancing ourselves from an actor because of something that they did that made us go, yeah, we shouldn't be
I
giving you money
also,
anymore.
I mean, you also gotta wonder like how much did Marvel know about Jonathan Majors before casting him? Like it, I have no idea if rumors were abounding about him before he was cast, or like when his star started to rise with I first saw him in Lovecraft Country.
Hmm.
um like were people in Hollywood talking like I would assume that big companies like Marvel and Disney they might do some due diligence if they're going to hire a performer for such a high
Hmm.
profile role. You can't get a job
Yeah,
at McDonald's without going without having a background check.
I feel as though, I'm choosing my words carefully because I don't know that this is true.
Because this
Right?
podcast is legally binding.
I feel as though there are people who decide when casting someone, is this is this person someone who, if something comes out, we can quash it, we can make it go away, et cetera,
Yeah,
et cetera.
we got that
Um,
House of the Mouse money.
but likewise, I think that it is also possible that they didn't know because, there is a really good chance that, and I don't know this for sure, but depending on how, you know their relationship was and who she talked to, et cetera, et cetera, it is, well, okay, Ben,
Paul,
I don't know how many people listen to this podcast that know us, right? I'm
one
just
or
going to
two.
say something. I'm going to say something that might be controversial. Okay.
Oh,
Um,
wearing a T-shirt that
let's
says "nice."
let's say that there's someone who is in a relationship with someone else, and that person is grievously injured by their partner. I have seen evidence that other people who know about that incident will sometimes say, well, I wonder what that other person did to make this person do that. Like domestic violence in the news and things like that have a, um, domestic violence in the news, etc., has a an idea that we all listen and believe that women are, you know telling the truth about things and that they're, victims, etc., etc. I have seen in my life that there are times when an incident can happen where violence is visited upon a woman and people side with the man, even though the
Like
situation is really bad.
like what did she do to provoke him kind of way?
Like she must, like the narrative is, in order for him to have that extreme of a reaction, in order for this to have happened to her, she must have also done something,
Right.
because this guy, I don't believe that this guy could have done that. That sort of thing. Um, it's it's not great. Um, and it's, especially if it's a domestic situation, right? If you weren't there, you as a person, are like, well, this isn't my business, or, well, I believe, that sort of thing. This sort of thing happens, is what I'm saying. And so the question is, if Jonathan
Majors.
Majors, if he is super famous, she's not famous, right? I don't know who she is, right? But people will make excuses for the perpetrator sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, people will always make excuses for any stupid thing, and you're gonna have like guy. I don't know what the word is. Guy apologists, male
Mm-hmm.
apologists, who they're gonna say she doesn't like him and she sabotaged his career because for petty reasons or whatever.
Or
Or I'm not saying that's what the victim is saying. I'm
or
saying that some people will believe that's what the victim will
right.
say.
Or,
Um,
well, she was physical with him too,
right. She hit
and
him
it's just that
first.
he's, yeah, exactly, that sort of thing.
Uh,
Um,
my only question was like, I I was just positing that did how much did Disney know and when did they know it? And did they only fire Jonathan Majors when all of this became public?
exactly. That's the question. And happy holidays, by the way, Ben. What a
Happy holidays. How's it
um
happening, Paul?
how's it happening? So right, exactly. But I think that we can both agree that, even though I think he's a good actor, right? I've
Yeah.
stated it before on the podcast. Um, I
You
also don't
caused his
think he is.
downfall.
No one was paying attention to him until I mentioned it, and then no. What I'm saying is that I don't think, and this is going to sound, you know, flippant. I don't mean to be flippant. Um, he is a good actor. He is not Walt Disney Company, and by extension Marvel, not deciding to chance the fact that their brand is tarnished by his criminal activity good at acting. I don't think that they're,
Yeah.
if you're Disney, you're gonna want to go with someone who is safer and maybe not as great an actor than someone who, well, if this comes out, it's going to be a problem. That
I
sort
mean,
of
I
thing.
was I was watching when I was watching Loki, and I was actually surprised to see him in Loki because I thought maybe they wrote and filmed Loki after like the allegations were initially
Hmm.
made public. So I was
How
surprised to see
wait? How
him.
long ago were they made public?
I don't have the timeline in front of me. It just for whatever reason I felt it odd that he was in the show as much
Hmm.
as he was, and I do remember watching him and just like thinking, why did you screw all this up?
Yeah. I mean,
Not like he's a victim
uh,
at all, but like yeah, you terrible person, you screwed this up.
the Mandalorian had a character that was going to get a spin-off show,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and then, same thing. It's like, all you had to do, just keep your
That's
mouth shut.
I mean, but that was like her politics were screwed up. You know, she wasn't.
That's what. Well, it's the same. What I'm saying is the same sort of thing
Yeah.
that, um, they money is not a motivation to clean up your act, I suppose. Now, here's the other thing: money is also a microscope, right? A little bit. No one cares what you and I do in general,
Right.
right? Um,
I mean, if
I think of
I perpetrated domestic violence, somebody would care, regardless of how much money I made. Just not that many.
right, right, right,
Not a whole fan base.
exactly. Um, and also, you live alone, so that would be really weird.
It's self abuse.
Sexual harassment at work. Ben works for himself.
There's your Saturday Night Live
Although
sketch.
I'm trying to get work done. That
Stop
sort of thing.
touching me.
Uh, so
Get out of my
uh,
head.
oh man, now I'm thinking about. I mean, uh, you know, content warning. A little bit. Um,
Well,
the
we have been
phrase
talking about
"stop."
domestic violence for the last 20
The
minutes.
phrase "stop hitting yourself," used by my brother on me when he took my fist and made me punch myself in the
A
face, etc.
classic brother on brother action.
As an autistic person, I have in the past, when extremely upset, hit myself.
Yeah.
Um, so stop hitting yourself is an actual game plan. Also, is an actual hey, let's start doing this. I am in therapy, as we know, for my OCD stuff and all that. But my therapist also works with people who are on the autism spectrum,
Yeah.
which is great. By the way, I'm sorry that I can't shout them out by name. I don't know who they are. I just saw a clip of them online, but I'm just saying this is not my joke. This is an online person who has this joke. He said, "I'm on the autism spectrum. I'm on that part of the spectrum where you don't have autism," which I thought was funny. As an autistic person, I give him uh, the the aha nod of a very very
Yeah.
playing with language, very good. But
Speaking of
the
stealing things, I finally did watch that 4 hour
oh, did you
video.
watch all of it?
I did. The second half, he like does a deep dive into this one content creator that I had never heard of, but now I know
Mhm.
everything about him.
That is one of the dangers of that, because I didn't know that content creator either,
Yeah.
and now you've just given them a larger platform. But
Well, I'm not gonna seek out his stuff anymore.
conversely, exactly, I'm not too interested in that
Yeah.
person doing that. Um, and today on this podcast, I introduced you, Ben Lawrence, to Dragula by White Zombie. I
There's a.
believe Dragula is the name of the car that the Munsters used to drive around in.
Dun, 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 dun. We used to not we used to. We spoke briefly at the top of the show about cover songs. Your love of cover songs is greater than mine. I generally don't enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's an artist that I really enjoy. Like the Beatles, I believe, have been covered so much, but I don't think I've heard a cover that I like better than the original. But I was thinking about cover songs that I do like more than the original, and a couple have come to mind. One, the Johnny Cash covers of Nine Inch Nails songs. I
Oh,
do enjoy those. I like Nine Inch Nails, but like Cash has his own spin on them, and they're heartbreaking. And
I think it was actually Trent Reznor who said that's not my song anymore.
yeah,
Like he said, that he enjoys the Johnny Cash version better
yeah.
as
I
well.
wear this crown of thorns. Um,
Yep.
But there's a Tom Waits song that was covered, and actually I think I do enjoy the cover. John Hammond Senior covers "Get Behind the Mule," and
Oh,
it's
I haven't
got a
heard that one.
more
I mean, I've heard that song, but I haven't
yeah,
heard his.
it's got a more like bluesy, guitar-y feel to it, and I actually it, as the kids
I don't know if
say, slaps.
I don't know if I told you this before or if you already knew it, but Downtown Train by Rod Stewart, written by Tom Waits.
Ah, I did not know that.
And Johnny Cash, Boy Named Sue, you might already know this,
Written by
written by
Rod
Shel
Stewart.
Silverstein.
We've come
No,
full circle.
no, Shel Silverstein.
Shel Silverstein, apparently also a terrible person.
Wait, what? Oh
Yeah,
no. Oh
yeah.
no.
I did some research into him at one point for a Panel Jumper Live a number of years ago, and I think he was. I don't think he. Yeah, I'm not gonna disparage his name because I can't remember the details except to say it's probably like best not to lionize him.
Let's just say that the Giving Tree was based on his relationship with a woman.
Yeah, arms off. No, it's not.
Oh no, Ben. I just meant
Oh,
taking and
she
taking and
wasn't the Black
taking,
Knight.
and no matter
Um,
what amount of abuse is
yeah,
put on it, they keep coming back
right.
to.
Or they take but they don't, or you take from them and they,
You take from them and
yeah,
they don't ask for anything in return, and so
yeah.
you, yeah. Well, that's too bad. I it was right now that I learned about it.
Clock it.
Um,
I was,
uh,
and I hate this phrase, today years old.
yeah, Fred Rogers still okay?
As
Hopefully,
far as I'm
still an all
aware.
right guy. All right.
Fred Rogers, Tom
Oh,
Hanks, I think still,
oh,
what's the phrase I'm
well,
looking
I don't
for?
know if you heard about this, but Tom Hanks and a friend of his, at one point in time,
Dressed
in
up as
order
women.
to, yeah, I was, you just jumped to it. You there,
Yep.
I was gonna drag it out a little bit for. Oh no, didn't do it on purpose. Did not, did not. But
You were
it did
gonna
happen.
drag it out?
Yeah, I was gonna drag the story out. Uh, it's not. It's no more fun. Hey, halfway through. So we're
One
three
quarter of the
fourths
way through the entire program
three
today.
fourths of the podcast left. I know this because I've been doing Duolingo. Today's episode been sponsored by Duolingo. You can now do math and music as well as foreign language study
We
on Duo.
are
This is not.
actually
We're
not
not
sponsored by
actually
Duolingo. We're taking no money from
Duolingo,
them.
but you can do math on it now, and I've
Maths.
done it.
Well
Maths,
done.
as our friends across the pond say, maths. Um.
Mathematics.
So anyway, the point being that people are people.
And they
So
suck.
why should it be you and I should get along so awfully? Um, yeah, I will say this. I have been turned onto, as the kids say, this I don't know what happened with my pronunciation there. This
This
YouTuber named Kane Pixels.
Kane Pixels.
Kaane Pixels,
Never heard of
who
them.
has a YouTube series called The Oldest View, the THE oldest view, VIEW, which is, I don't want to spoil it. It's just it's somebody doing some urban exploration.
The oldest
Uh,
view.
the oldest view. But this person, who is 17 right now, I believe, just got picked up to do a film for A24 based on their YouTube work. And I have to say, it's worth it. I mean, I know exactly why. It's really really well done. So yeah, I suggest you check it out, Ben.
I've written it down in the show notes. If they Google themselves, they will probably find it and see that some random podcasts
Yeah.
mentioned them.
I wonder if we ever, I'm sure that we do. I'm sure
Check
that
the
we do
audio.
get some people listening to us for this. Oh, and so I will mention Vic Michaelis. They are an improviser. Uh, they show up on several shows on Dropout. Dropout has was College Humor. Uh,
Ah,
it
I
is now
heard that they
simply
were
known as Dropout.
canceling or rebranding or doing something.
Yep. And there's a new show that Dropout has done called Very Important People. Vic Michaelis is the host. And Ben, let me tell you, it is great. I've only seen one episode so far. It's called Princess Emily. That is I believe that each episode is going to be the name of the character in the episode. This is what happens.
And the character, this is a fictional character they're talking about?
They take an improviser, sit them down, and do makeup on them, prosthetics, costuming, etc. Make them look like a completely different person.
Yeah.
They don't see when this is happening. They're in the chair. They're getting this stuff put on. And then they get taken to the mirror where they can see themselves
So they're not in front of a
for
mirror when the makeup is getting put
right,
on.
exactly. Then they see themselves, they have a little bit of time to look at themselves, and then they get brought into the studio and get interviewed by Vic Michaelis.
Okay.
And it is my stuff. It is the exact thing that I like to see happening. I like lore building, real time
Yeah.
building, Ben. It's one of my favorite things. So yeah, completely worth it.
Is this British production? Are they
No,
American?
it's yeah, they're American. It's Dropout. Takes
Sudanese?
place in Los Angeles, California.
Okay.
Oh, but hey, speaking about African theater, I believe I don't know. Africa is a continent, as we know, so this is very broad.
Very large
I
continent.
recommend. I think this is right, like in the '90s. Still, yeah, it's from the '90s, late '80s, early '90s. Waze Albert, which I believe means Rise Up Albert. Um, Two people on stage playing different characters, telling a story of um, like revolution, resistance, etc., in a
Yeah.
comedic fashion. Uh, you and I never ripped off Waze Albert, which is good, but it would have been
I'd
like
like to
their
believe we didn't
style.
rip off of too many people.
Exactly, we try not to, but their style would have been cool for us. Like if we had done it, it would have served us, kind of well.
Ah.
Because they're people switching characters. One person leaves, another person comes in, etc.,
Yeah.
etc. That kind of thing. In fact, Ben, if you and I ever do get to go on stage again, I think it would be very funny to do a show. Do you remember the good cop bad cop scene that was Bob Odenkirk? Uh,
He said I'm the bad cop?
yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Also starring
Jay Johnston?
Jay Johnston.
Or John
Again,
Stone? I can't
one
remember.
of the only people, conservative and funny.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for us, that's a problem. Um, but he now I do wonder still if I had known it, and maybe his politics changed. That's the other thing, right? If I had known his politics at the time that I was watching Everest, the story of Everest, would I have laughed as much as I did? or would I be watching it going, this guy doesn't believe in immigration, or
Yeah.
whatever? I don't, and here's the thing. This is the thing about, that sort of, just because, I can't believe I'm saying this, and I can't stop laughing as I'm saying this, but I have to say, just because he was part of the January 6th thing doesn't mean that we know what his politics are. We have to we we, we have to
Sure.
give
Yeah.
the benefit of the doubt. I can. This is. I'm not making this up. I'm laughing because I can't. We we don't. We can't know his mind or what he stands for.
For the listeners at home, Paul it appears it appears like he's laughing too hard, but I can't help but think that maybe part of this is a show.
Just because. Just because he participated. Just because he participated in January 6th. I can't make it through, man. Just because he I can't. I can't say. I feel sick. Okay. Um anyway, yeah, that guy. He's in it too.
That
Is what I'm
guy
saying.
is
So,
in
but
good
anyway,
cop,
what I
bad
was
cop.
saying is that it would be fun to
Right.
do
If we
a
were on when we get on stage again.
right. If we did a show called, this is, hey, people listening, this is the process that Ben and I sometimes do. It could be done over email, whatever. But so, Ben, the idea is it's called Good Cop, Bad Cop. One of us is the person being interrogated, and then the other one of us leaves and comes back as the good cop and the bad cop.
Has that not been done before?
They're the same cop. His other partner couldn't make it, and so he's being both the good cop and the bad cop.
I can't believe that's
You
not been
think it's
done
been
yet.
done before?
It
It's
sounds
possible.
so, I mean, either familiar or like one of those like how has that not been done yet? Because
Yeah,
it totally sounds like a Mr. Show sketch even though it's not.
yeah, exactly. Um, and then of course, in the end, you do the islands in the stream thing where it's a female sing. It's Dolly Parton on one half and Kenny Rogers on the other, and so he switches between good cop
Oh,
bad.
right.
Yeah,
That's definitely
but
been a drag act in the last,
but
40
no.
years
So
of drag acts.
good cop, bad cop would be Police Files episode 4
Murder Files.
or whatever. Murder Files.
Has there not been a good cop bad cop sketch where the bad cop is the incompetent cop?
There must be. Yeah, 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 yeah. There's also Good Cop, Dad Cop. I remember.
Good cop
Uh,
dad cop.
that was again, speaking of Dropout. I think that was on an episode of Make Some Noise. Which, by the way, have you seen Make Some Noise?
I've not seen anything on Dropout.
Oh, Dropout is good, Ben. It's a good. It's where Dimension 20 comes from. But that's why I got it, because I like watching actual play D&D
Wait,
stuff.
you have to pay for Dropout?
Yeah, it's like $5 a month or something like
A
that.
day.
No, it's very affordable, and this is the other thing, Ben. I like the people and what they're doing. Right, I enjoy them,
So you
and I
you
want
pay for
them.
Dropout just for like the Dimension 20 is the killer app on that channel.
Right, but again, Make Some Noise has become good. Game Changer is the other one that's really good. You might have seen clips of Game Changer. Make Some Noise spun off of Game Changer. Game Changer is a game show where the rules of the game show that you're playing change every episode, and
Okay.
you have to figure out what the game is,
Same
and
contestants
then you have to
per
win.
the go
Different
across
contestants
episodes.
sometimes, yeah. So it's Dropout has a cast, right? Like people who are on like every Dropout show,
Ah,
and they swap out different people.
gotcha.
So you
So
get your
they have a
favorites.
repertory company.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Zach Oyama is one of them. and they were all College Humor people as well, for back when College Humor was just sketches and stuff. But now
Yeah.
on Dropout, they do basically long form shows, like half-hour shows. It's really good.
I've not seen it. My YouTube time is generally spent catching up on the news and commentary. And
Oh, hey, tell me more about the news, Ben. What's going on with
well,
it?
there was a Paul gonna guess the news. There was a big development today, or not today, but day before yesterday on Tuesday. The Colorado State Supreme Court decided something
Oh,
very important. What did the Colorado State Supreme Court decide?
I know this one. Weed is now legal. No, I'm kidding. That's from years ago, folks. And I'm sorry to branch off on this for just a second, but there's a rumor going around that friend of the podcast, even though he's never been on it, both you and I were friends with him at one point in time, and probably still are, but he's moved on to other cities and other levels of Reggie Watts. Reggie Watts. There was a story, a myth, a legend that the weed in Colorado was too strong for Reggie Watts, and you and I, when we
Did
heard
he
that, we're just like, I don't think that's true.
did he say this on
Um,
his Reddit AMA?
no, well, I don't know. Maybe he did. Maybe he went. But we believed at the time that the rumor was that, but probably it had something to do with the altitude that he was at, because you could get messed up with altitude sickness. Anyway, point being, Donald Trump is not going to be on the ballot in Colorado.
Correct. Thanks
They're
to
talking about
the
taking it.
insurrectionist clause in the 14th Amendment.
They're talking about taking it to the Supreme Court. Um, and again, the thing that I always like when someone takes it to the Supreme Court, this is how you end up with the Baphomet display in the county courthouse.
Which, did you hear what
Uh,
happened to that?
yeah, guy went. Of course, I believe the Satanic Temple had a spare Baphomet ready to go and just replaced it. So there you go.
I mean, there was a dude who was
Again,
sitting in front of it just praying, like praying, and
oh,
the right says the left are weird.
yeah, well, I mean, people are weird for sure, everywhere, but
People are
in
strange
this case, yeah,
when you're
when
a
you're a stranger.
stranger. Yep.
Oh, speaking about Strange Game, song by Mick Jagger. I think I mentioned this before, for Slow Horses, uh, written specifically for it. I have it now on my iTunes playlist because I like it so much.
Rolling Stones still touring. Who'da thunk it?
Yeah. Um, Mick Jagger, canceled, or is he an okay guy? Let's
It's
talk
so
about it.
weird. It feels like a lot of those '70s era rock stars are getting a pass because it's pretty publicly known that Steven Tyler of Aerosmith like raped a child on tour.
I did.
And by
That
raped
was
a
a
child, I mean
gasp
had a relationship
yeah.
with a
Um,
14-year-old, you know?
there is my understanding, Ben, is that there is no way to legally have sex with a child. That it is considered rape no matter what.
That's why
So
I said
I
that.
think your phrasing was correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and like
Um.
even in the early 2000s when these guitar games were big,
Yeah.
Aerosmith had their own rock band game, right? And I heard a story that they made more money off of that video game than all of their albums combined. Now, you can believe
I
what you
believe
want
it.
about like how much musicians make off of record sales. But like it's been, Steven Tyler's been known to be like this predatory monster for decades, and yet where is he on the canceled list? So yeah, who knows? Who
Yeah.
knows? I don't know if
Exactly
Mick
right.
Jagger is problematic. He probably is. I've not heard any
Oh no.
stories.
Oh no. What's the name of the lead singer of Aerosmith? I'm blanking.
Steven Tyler.
Oh, he is the one who is,
Yeah.
because the guitarist is a different guy. So I wanted
Joe
to.
Perry. No, Joe Perry.
Oh.
Not Luke Perry. Joe. Yeah, I think it's Joe Perry.
As opposed to Joe Pera, who is a comedian who has his own special. I believe on Netflix that I watched and I liked it. Um, so
Just slandered Steven
wow,
Tyler's name all
I
over this podcast.
I
That's probably
haven't
true.
I haven't listened to. Oh, come on, I wonder if we've ever talked good about Aerosmith on here. I'm not the biggest
You
fan.
know,
Oh,
I
I
like
think we
Aerosmith. Come on,
did.
I like their
I think
music.
we. I'm not a big fan, but I did. I think I did talk about how it was Aerosmith who brought Run DMC to my attention, and therefore you
I
know,
there's that, but
and that was my introduction to hip hop when I
I
was a kid.
my right after I got my driver's license when I was 16, my sister and I shared a car, and she had an Aerosmith tape in the tape deck of the car, and I would blast that tape. It was not Permanent Vacation. I can't remember the name of the album, but like I remember just blasting that tape all summer long when I was driving around. And that was a great summer for me. That was like the summer like between my sophomore and junior years of high school where I wasn't required by my parents to get a job, but I still had that sort of freedom because I had a driver's license.
Yeah.
It was a great summer for me. And Aerosmith is very tightly linked with that summer.
So this is an interesting thing, and I don't know exactly how to parse this. This might be a an offshoot of my OCD, maybe.
Pump
But
is the name of the Aerosmith album. That's
there are certain bands that
important.
I would never like buy an album from, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Like, it's not that necessarily I couldn't listen to their music. I just couldn't own their music.
Because you don't want to
Aerosmith is
support them
one.
financially?
I maybe or there's just something. Oh, uh, sorry. Thumbs up for. Okay, so it's Aerosmith is one. The Grateful Dead is another one. The
Yeah.
Eagles.
They play
But
the Eagles, man. It's a
Van Halen,
almost live line from the
I
90s.
might, I probably wouldn't, but I might,
Van
is
Halen
what
or
I would
Van
say.
Hagar? Those are two kind of different bands.
I want to say that
Because 1984 is a great
yeah,
album.
that's what I was going to say. Is I really, as much as I am in the camp of oh, it must have been too bad to be Sammy Hagar to, there was nothing wrong with him until he, you know,
Couldn't drive over 55.
well,
Or
no, I
under
can't drive
55.
55. People liked it, right? It
Yeah.
was
It
fine.
was a hit.
And then yeah, so there's that. Yeah, probably not. Um, John Cougar Mellencamp, probably not.
And do you have a
Um,
reason why you're listing off all these
no,
artists that you
no,
won't
no.
own music from?
Well, I'm just the reason I'm doing it is I'm
Did they
just talking about the fact that there's a weird
just
thing in my brain where I'm like can't do it.
artists you don't
Um,
like?
well, no, and this is what I'm saying. It's not that I don't necessarily like a song of theirs, or if they're on, I'm like, oh, change the station. I don't like this. There's something in me that says I can't own an album by this band. I would not buy this
It's
band's
just an innate
music.
feeling you can't quite
Exactly. That I
say
can't quite
why.
describe. I don't know exactly why because there are other bands that I don't necessarily like that I don't know if they'd fall into this category or not. Like there's a there is a thing in my brain that's just like nope, not going to do it. And I think what it is for each of these bands, what I think it might be is that there's a specific person I know that is a fan of them, and I'm like,
I don't want to be like that person.
exactly. I think that might be what it is. Part of the whole OCD thing is trying to figure out where you get your weird, feelings about stuff from.
I mean,
Like,
I hated Joy Division and the Smiths when I was in college, but I knew exactly why. It's because my roommates played them constantly.
well, there you go. Maybe that's part of
So
it.
I'm like,
In the
I hate.
last
There's nothing wrong with these bands in and of themselves. I just don't like them because Eric keeps playing them.
the last therapy session I was in was all about me getting concerned about eating food that was spoiled or poisoned, getting food poisoning, right?
Yeah.
And so, and and that's a real fear, right? You don't want to do that, but it keeps me from sometimes eating food that other people have prepared. Like if I don't buy it from a store, if someone else made it, I won't eat it necessarily. Uh, Being vegan, by the way, was a great way to avoid that sort of thing, without seeming too horrible. I am not vegan now, and also, a part of my therapy is making myself uncomfortable by eating something that I don't, uh, that's past its sell by date. That's number one.
Yeah.
There's a difference between expiration date and sell by date, but I couldn't eat anything past the sell by date. Um, on the off chance that it would make me sick. So that's one of the things I'm doing, eating stuff that we've purchased that's past the sell by date that's still good. But just this last time, I ate a tuna fish sandwich that Jennifer made. I can't stand tuna fish. Like the thought of eating it is horrible. Until now, because I ate the entire tuna fish sandwich and it was fine. And I didn't die. Nothing bad happened. Jennifer made it,
Is it because
so
you don't like the flavor or texture, or is it because you just don't trust tuna fish to not make you sick?
I don't trust tuna fish not to make me sick. Also, flavor and texture. The whole thing wrapped. It's got mayonnaise in it. There's
Yeah.
a chance
No,
that
I
you
don't.
know
I can't stand tuna fish sandwiches.
for as long as it sits out, you never know like how bad it is, etc. But I'm fine. I'm fine, so it's not a problem.
No, I mean there's a healthy amount of skepticism you should have when it comes to food that might be spoiled. But give it the smell test. Does it smell okay? You know.
Yeah, and I mean that was the other thing is that part of the thing I ate that was past its sell by date was this tapioca pudding that I had in the fridge,
Yeah.
that I hadn't eaten for a while. And once I had the basic thing is that you have this thing, what's your level of anxiety about this from, whatever. I started out as an 8 when I was eating the food that could be spoiled, but as soon as I took a bite of it and it was fine, dropped all the way down to like a 3
Yeah.
because, well, it tasted fine. There's no problem with it. Speaking of tasting fine and there not being a problem with it, Ben, we're
Hey,
already
at the end of our first
at the
hour
end of the our first hour
of
of the
our
podcast.
10-hour marathon. Donate now at
Whoa!
GudeLaurance.com. Support the podcast. Oh, some shows do that. We don't.
Hey, Ben, I will say this though: if ever I become unemployed, we're going to start a Patreon.
You can
Oh,
manage it. I'm not doing anything with the Patreon.
yeah. Oh
That's
no, no,
all
yeah.
you.
I'll
That's
I'll
your job
manage. I'll
now.
manage it. Yeah,
But
that
I
would be
get
my
50%.
job. And you do get 50%. You've done so much that yes, that would be the case. Um, we'd also, I don't know what the show would. I have absolutely no idea what the show would be like if I actually devoted the amount of time that I normally devote to a job to the podcast. I don't think it would improve at all,
40
but something might happen.
hours condensed into
Yeah,
1 hour of output.
what would that even be? What would
A
it
well-researched and produced show.
it really couldn't help though. I don't think it would make the
No,
show any
it would
better.
be very, very different. So hey, yeah, we're at the end. Paul, we're gonna like do a
Yeah.
keep it wrong, and then I'm gonna go like refresh my beverage here. I'm drinking
Okay.
seltzer water, cucumber melon flavored seltzer water.
Wow. Okay.
Simple Truth Organic. It's actually quite good. I'm gonna get me another one for the second hour.
So
But in the
here's what's going to
meantime,
happen. For
in the
you
mean,
listening at home, Ben and I are going to do a keep it wrong. Ben's going to go and refresh his seltzer water. I am going to start the next half of the podcast. So next week, my voice will be the first one that you hear, and then Ben's going to get back whatever he does, uh, because I care about Ben's time.
you'll know I've returned by the sound of an aluminum can opening. Well, Paul Goody, till the next time we meet, I hope that you keep it wrong.
Hey, Ben, also keep it wrong, and I'll talk to you next week in a couple of minutes.
And we're clear.
We're clear. All right. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the GudeLaurance podcast. My name is Paul Goody. I do this podcast once a week with my friend Ben Lawrence. Ben Lawrence and I were performance artists in the Seattle fringe scene in the 2000s. Uh, Basically, from 2000 to around 2014, I want to say is when. So about 14 years of doing crazy things on stage for Seattle audiences at Annex Theater. It started out on Fourth Avenue in Seattle, Washington, and then it became itinerant for a little bit, and then finally ended up moving to what's the new location of Annex Theater, Ben?
1100 East Pike Street, but we did have a location at the Capitol Hill Arts Center in the interim.
Yes, Shack, as it was called.
Spin the Bottle never was in our space in Shack because, oddly enough, back then Spin the Bottle audiences couldn't fit into our tiny venue in Shack. So we did Spin the Bottle at the Oddfellows Hall in a couple of different spaces in that building.
Yep. And Ben and I always enjoyed this. This is a true story. You may not know this about performance artists, and it might not be true for every performance artist, but after a while, Ben and I actually got better at what we were doing. And we
I don't know. Maybe
started,
the jury's still out on that one.
yeah, you're right. But we started thinking more about what we were doing, and we started
Yeah.
using the space that we had. A lot of this, and I think that you would agree with me, Ben. A lot of this probably comes from the involvement of Brett Fetzer, who famously directed Naked Ladies, the
Yeah.
GudeLaurance late night show that we wrote, but also just in general, he would challenge us. He would say, "Hey, I want you to do this. I want you to do this."
Paul, and you remember why he started doing that, but by giving us assignments.
Because we started doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah,
Was that what you were saying?
sort of like doing that, kind of phoning it in, and then
Well, I mean, there is
he
that,
gave
but
us
also he
challenges.
saw the film The 12 Obstructions, or Five Obstructions by Lars von Trier, which was all about Lars von Trier asking another director friend of his to redirect a short film that he made, but he gave him five different things that he couldn't do,
Yeah.
or five different criteria. And Ben, I will tell you this: I saw that movie with Brett, and I thought it was great. So when he said, "Hey, I kind of want to do this with you and Ben," I was all for it. Uh,
I did not know that Brett's taking on the monthly challenges for us was inspired by the five obstructions.
really, was this the first time that you've heard that?
Uh, Best to my knowledge. Maybe I heard it in the
That's
past sometime
crazy.
and it just didn't take.
Okay, well, so I don't know if he was clocking but it was like right after we saw it that started
Okay.
happening.
Because I
And
have not
so
seen that film.
so like as an example in that film, he would say to his friend, you give him five things like there can't be any dialogue. You can't have a shot that's more than 5 seconds long. You have to do this. You have to do that. Whatever. You give him
Yeah.
five things you
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
work with. For us, it was a little bit different. I think it was maybe the one obstruction sometimes, and you can't use any words. He would say so, or you
It
have to do.
it kind of felt like the whole thing is funny because the history that I built in my mind, Lars von Trier aside, was that Brett was giving us these challenges because he felt that we weren't putting enough effort into our spin the bottle pieces.
Absolutely,
And then after
absolutely,
a while, it felt like every month Brett was just telling us to do spectacle. Like he wasn't
yeah.
putting enough effort into thinking about challenges to give us.
Yeah. So it came full circle. But the basic thing, and I agree with this 100%. It is more interesting, in my opinion, giving someone a blank canvas and say you can do whatever you want isn't as interesting as giving someone
Yeah.
things to push against,
Well, and that's also sort
boundaries
of
to.
like that's kind of the what Annex Theater is, right? It's um uh, bold, risky theater in an environment of improb. Wait, it's bold theater in an environment of improbability and risk, right? So there are
Yeah.
limited resources, and to what are these set designers, lighting designers, prop designers going to do to create this spectacle? You know, in this limited atmosphere, and some really great things came out of that.
Hey, can I tell you something that's kind of crazy?
What's kind of
It
crazy?
still looks like I have mutton chops, right? Kind of.
Even though you have stopped shaving your chin,
Because the hair on my chin is white.
your chinny chin chin.
And so
Yeah.
from a distance, it looks like it's so
Well, you know, there's a product
that
there called Just for Men, Paul. You could just
absolutely
just
not.
do
But
it,
this is the
comb
reason
it
I
into
stopped
your
shaving my
beard
chin
hair.
is because it's easier. It's easier not to shave it. So I'm just going to grow a beard out and we'll see what it ends up looking like.
I saw it, dude. I don't like making fun of people that I see, or
Oh
especially I don't
no.
like making fun of people at all, right? I don't like making fun of the way people look. I'm not making fun of this guy. I'm just describing him. Some random person I saw on the sidewalk. His hair was white, like he looked, you know, over the age of 45. His
Yep.
beard dark black. And so
Yeah.
the story that I got into my head was that he like colors his beard for some reason. But it's weird that he doesn't do the hair on his head either. He's a full head of hair, right?
It's
But
it's
just
so it's so that when he
dark
wears his
black
hat,
beard. Yeah, it was
um,
just it was an interesting look.
you
I
know,
couldn't help but feel like maybe like he's a performer, you know, and there's some reason why his beard looks that way and not his
it
hair.
is possible because there are people that are like this that his beard hair hasn't turned yet. It I know it sounds weird, but it
Yeah, no,
is a
that's.
thing that could happen.
I was wondering if that was also one of the reasons why, and like, dude's just going with it.
Um, I will I will say that for me, for a while anyway, you remember this. My beard was red, but the hair on my head was more blondish. It wasn't as red as my beard was, so it looked really odd.
Yeah.
And so I dyed my hair the same color as my beard, but it was an uncanny valley sort of thing where it was the same color, but it really wasn't. So it looked even more fake
Right.
than than it had been. Oh, speaking about, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, speaking about the uncanny valley, I used a so I produce a number of things for different clients. One of these things that I produce, I need to provide art for. And this art is just I take the picture of somebody, I am provided a picture of somebody, I put it in the template they give me, and I attach it to the product. And sometimes they send me low res pictures, like whoever's in charge of sending me pictures, like copies and pastes it off of like a thumbnail image on the internet, you know.
Yeah,
So in the past, what I've done is I've Googled this person and tried to find a higher res picture of them online. Sometimes I'm
yeah,
successful, sometimes I don't. Sometimes if I can't find a high res picture, I just say, we don't have a good picture of this person. Let's just use the template that doesn't require this person's face. Normally they're cool with that.
yeah.
So this week I was given a low res picture, Googled for a higher res picture of this person, couldn't find it. Thought, I wonder if there's a tool out there that can magnify, and enhance this picture for me to make it to give
Oh
me a
man,
high res photo. There are a number of tools out there that you can use for
yeah.
AI upresing. Used one of them, put this person's picture into this thing. It did what it was told to, right? It's a nice high res picture,
Mhm.
but it's got that feel. It's got that AI
Yeah,
generated uncanny valley feel
that's
to
what I
it.
was gonna say. Isn't it crazy?
It's weird. I mean, I'm sure it'll get better, but yeah, it looks like this is a fake person that I asked
You
Midjourney to come up with.
and you can't necessarily put your finger on what it is, but you can feel it.
It's yeah,
that there's something off.
it's a way the colors are blended. It's the eyes are kind of dead. You know, even in the low res picture, the eyes are more alive than they are in this upper. Nobody said anything yet. This thing went live yesterday, and nobody has said
Yeah,
anything yet about how weird the picture looks. I'm waiting to find out if it causes an issue, because this is something that can easily replace, right? But
yeah.
yeah, it's so yeah. Finally used AI to do a job for me that I wouldn't want to say it saved me any time, any considerable amount of time, but yeah,
It's like here's the thing, Ben, and I hate to say it. AI is like motion smoothing for pictures. That's exactly what
that's
it
a
is.
that's a
It
good way to put it. Yeah,
it's something that we Generation X folks aren't gonna like. That that boomers don't notice
yeah,
sometimes,
yeah.
or are okay with, and that the young kids don't like for moral reasons. Well, I don't.
I mean
Motion
this
smoothing isn't like that,
no,
but
but and this has this this AI upscaling didn't rely on. I'm assuming didn't rely on this AI's knowledge of or scraping images from the internet, right?
oh, Ben, it does. But here's the thing.
It's all interconnected.
Here's this is the thing that I and I will I will say this, right? The moral issue with AI isn't that the AI learns and then is able to recreate images that it processes, in my opinion. The moral issue is that the people that you are using the work of to process it are not compensated for the money that you make off of your tool. What I mean by that is this: I don't think that Ben Lawrence, right, going in and making that picture, I don't think that there's a moral problem with that. I think there's a moral problem if the people that sold you that filter got the data for that filter from people that they didn't pay,
Right, of
which is
course.
most likely the case. Now you,
I didn't even
uh,
pay for it, so who knows where that money's coming from?
right? If you talk to Betty and some kids from her side, they do believe, and I'm sure that there are people our age who believe the same thing. Do believe that you using that tool took the money out of somebody else's pocket, but because of what you do, right? You couldn't go to a digital artist and say, "Hey, can
Right.
you blow this up for me?"
Well,
Um,
what I would be
well, I
asking a
mean,
digital
maybe
artist to
they,
do is to paint a portrait of this person.
right, which is not, and this is the other thing is that, in the end, right, the photograph at the time that it came out, people didn't like photographs because it took the art out of the thing, and you just bought an expensive camera, and so you aren't the same as a portrait painter, et cetera, et cetera. New
Yeah.
technology is always hated, and then eventually becomes mainstream.
Yeah.
Again, at some point in time,
I was
the
I was wondering if this person's photo that I uploaded to this random website that can do this is now being used in the machine of learning what people look like.
there are actual rules about that for some places now, where they say, for instance, there's it's called "Am I?" I forget exactly what it was. It was something like
It's like
am
being
I
trained.
trained, or
Yeah.
am I are people being trained off of my images? And they on that site say, if you upload an image for us to check, we won't
Oh, right.
use it, for our purposes. Like they actually put that on the website. But yeah, the way I look at it is this:
Because that would be irony.
anything that we put online, can be scraped.
Yeah.
these days. The other thing that, I think about
Please
is how we're
scrape this
not
podcast.
here. This is the thing, right? We talked about this before. Our podcast is low enough in the ratings and has enough content that we are prime scrape bait for people to
Scrape
come
it.
and use us for their audio generator things. You and I will hear our voices on a commercial at some point in time, quite possibly,
it'll
which will
be
be
a
weird.
it'll be a while.
But here's the other thing: are we special? Right? This is why I know this sounds crazy, but this is why I believe in basic uh, or universal basic income. This is why I think it's important. If if our livelihood is not tied to art that we make at all,
Yeah.
then if someone else uses our voices for a thing, I mean, I guess maybe there's a moral thing about it because someone might hear it and mistake that person for me and think that I agreed to do this or that I'm the one that's endorsing this. But if I'm not a public person, the fact that someone thinks that a guy with my voice said that, yeah, we should do this, isn't that big of a deal, right? And and again, if I'm not relying on the art that I make for food and shelter, the fact that someone has made something that looks like what I did,
Yeah.
what does it matter,
Well,
right? That sort of thing.
it's also kind of akin to what H Bomber Guy was talking about in his video on plagiarism, and that one of the reasons why James Somerton didn't credit some of these creators that he plagiarized from is because he didn't think people would know. He didn't think
Right.
they were important enough to the audience, to his audience, that they knew who they were, right? And
Well,
so
and then the other part of it, not respecting the creative process, and I think
yeah,
I mean, that ship has sailed as far as that goes. The the amount of people who have, and I here's the thing, I've done it, right? So I understand this. Looking at so I had this experience where I was creating images on Midjourney,
yeah,
right? And then I saw one of my images on Midjourney. I'm like, I don't remember making that one. Well, of course I didn't. And I didn't make the other ones that I did either. This was someone else who used my information that I put in, my prompts and everything like that, to make an image like the ones that I made. But
yeah,
uh, I had no ownership of the originals that I made, if that makes sense. There wasn't anything about the originals that I made that were uniquely me. I was
right,
using this tool to make them. And because this tool that I was using to make them was the one that made these images, someone else could make an exact copy of the thing I made.
yeah.
And there wasn't
Just
like a piece of me that was missing from it because I didn't do anything.
your only input were the way you typed the prompt into the
Exactly.
website.
And my prompt was not that unique. You know what I
Show me
mean? There,
boobs.
yeah, no, but yeah, but no.
But yeah,
Um, uh, Natasha Leone, in spacesuit, escaping from canister of milk or whatever. Like type nonsense words, but it'll make something,
yeah,
right? But someone else can type that exact same sentence, and it's going to look different if they don't seed it with pictures like I do, right? So I have a picture of like one of the things that I used to do, and I loved it. Ben, I could do this forever. If not, again, for my kid shaming me for the morality of what it was that I was doing. Just taking two images, right? Uploading both of them to Midjourney and saying, I want a picture that's a mashup of these two pictures, and then giving it words, right?
right.
The images that I made with that, I better than watching TV, better than watching a movie, better than reading a book, better than all. It was
I'm
just
glad it appealed to you.
pure creativity and fun, right?
Yeah.
Someone could say to me, "You didn't draw that." No, I didn't. Midjourney did it, but I am enjoying the heck out of doing it. The only reason that I stopped is again because she was like, "Look, the people that Midjourney got its data from never agreed to it,
Yeah.
and therefore, you're paying Midjourney $30 a month to use data that they got from other people."
But she,
And my argument was, well, they really don't have copyright over the image data that they pulled. And what I mean by that is this: the way that light and dark is used, the way that the colors match together, all of that kind of stuff. The aesthetic pieces of that image aren't necessarily owned by the author, but that is not the case in at least one of the legal things that was mentioned,
yeah.
that is in fact what you copyright in images. And as soon as I read that, and I was like, well, okay, I guess I can't use this. Although the lawsuit against Midjourney was recently dropped.
Did it break?
Did the
Nothing.
lawsuit break?
When
Okay.
they dropped it.
Um,
So is Betty taking some sort of like ethics in AI
nope,
course in school?
nope, nope. She just has strong opinions about how things work. And
As the
and here's
young
the thing,
generation should.
I until she thinks it's okay, I can't do it. I can't. There's plenty of other stuff for me to do with my time,
Yeah.
but I can't. There's just, oh, Ben. I mean, it really is. I speak to it like an addict who remembers the good old days when they were, doing drugs,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
whatever. I mean, I just grab an image
You miss it.
and another image,
You
put
have
it
that.
together.
You have that draw. That
Yeah,
pull.
it's really fun. It's really fun and satisfying to see the end thing. As soon as that TV stuff is available, and I can write a show and watch it be made in real time, I'm gonna go nuts. It's gonna be great. Um, but anyway,
Taking a job away
oh,
from an editor.
yeah, I mean, but again, this is the other thing, is that I don't think that you're going to be out of a job, because the people that pay you to edit video because they can't do it themselves, or they don't want to do it themselves, aren't going to want to do it with AI either.
Yeah. I got a few good
They'll
years left.
they'll ask you to do it via AI,
Yeah.
is what'll end up being, probably.
And they'll pay for half hour of AI prompt writing.
Can you imagine at some point in time, no one's going to have time? People aren't going to want to. No one's going to want to watch anything that you produce, because they're going to be too busy watching their own stuff. I made this at home.
Well, what is that? I can't remember where I heard this. It was just like some sort of premonition of what the movies are going to be like, and it might even be like what was happening in the whole a scenario that might happen based that they said during the SAG-AFTRA talks, is that you go to a movie theater and you tell it what kind of movie you want to watch, and then it just immediately produces that movie, and then you go into the theater and you watch that movie.
Yeah, well,
There's
that's
no
exactly right.
writer, director, actors, no other crew. It's all AI generated, and it's just based on your own personal preferences.
The only difference with that is that they think that you're going to the movie theater. Uh,
Somebody's
you
got to
won't.
have a job making popcorn.
You'll be watching it at home, and you'll try to get other people to watch the movie that you made. Hey, you should check out this movie that I just made, for this, and they're not going to want to, because they're going to want to watch their movie.
You think there's a lot of content now? Just wait.
Maybe it'll be like a mixtape. Hey, Ben, I know you like this, and this. Come watch this movie that I made for you based on your preferences, based on what I know about you.
Subscribe to my streaming service where you can see all of my AI generated movies for a short price of $25 a month.
Exactly.
Because at
Hey,
this
I'm a
point, inflation's going to be like, that's going to be nothing.
I mean, at this point, though, I mean, there are people that I see advertisements for online for digital artists, and their stuff does not look good, and I couldn't figure out why. Well, that's before I knew how AI works,
Right.
and then I'm like, oh, right, okay, yeah, this is bad, you know. But there, like I said, some of the best stuff that I've ever seen are images that I made using Midjourney, uh, and
If I do say
and I
so
love them.
myself.
Oh, no one else will probably like it. But yeah, I mean, I still, and this is the thing, Ben, I still have them on my phone. I still look at them from time to time, and I'm like, oh, this was great. I remember when I made this,
I can't
you
remember
know.
what I wanted to
But
do. Oh, I had this image in my head of a picture I wanted to make, right? And I'm like, well, I could Photoshop it, but let's see if I can have an AI generate this, because I actually do have an account at OpenAI because I used ChatGPT for a job
yeah,
once because I had to. And OpenAI is where the image generator DALL-E is, and so I'm like, oh, I'll just go find DALL-E and ask DALL-E to make this image for me. They have put it behind a paywall. You now have to pay $20
I
to
drew this guy.
you now have to pay $20 a month to access their image generation services
Yeah,
at OpenAI. ChatGPT is still free. You just need an account. But I'm like, no, I'm not going to pay $20 a month for this. Because
yeah.
I know that the creators whose images trained this AI weren't paid.
I made myself. I mean, the account for whatever you call it, Midjourney was $30 a month.
Yeah.
And I paid it happily because, again, drugs, like drugs. I drew this myself.
Looks like a Pac-Man ghost.
It is like a Pac-Man ghost, but I drew it. I was the one who drew it. I drew this myself. We talked about this already. It's this little
Yeah.
guy who's running.
If you're listening on the podcast, just find the YouTube video for this, and you can see what Paul's trying to show
I
off.
drew this myself.
Vulgar.
Yes. But now, Ben, we get into the. Now we're not getting paid for this podcast, so I'm not making any money off of this. Um, so this is a thing that I took at Six Flags Pride Fest, right?
Yeah.
And
Hard to
then
see what it actually is.
this is a thing that I took at Six Flags Pride Fest.
Yeah.
A
Fright
can
Fest.
with a scary face. Yeah. Now, what I would do with Midjourney is I would feed those two things in together, and it would make its own image, right? That's the kind of stuff that I would do. I would feed those things in. So this is using Bing. It's a Polaroid photo of three werewolves on a family road trip in the Badlands circa 1981. Pretty good.
Ah.
Right? Bing's is actually all right. This is same prompt, different picture. And same prompt, different picture. Again, all pretty good. That's Bing's. And then this one finally. And this is
We're in Wolf
also
Country.
Bing's. Yeah. So yeah, they did some pretty good stuff. The Bing people did, but it's not the
Because
same.
isn't that Google's own image generation
Bing
service that or
or who are
Microsoft's?
you? What do you? Yeah, Bing is using. I think Bing is using ChatGPT though. I'm almost positive. But then this is the stuff that I used to make, Ben. I am almost ready to show it to you. I
I
just have to
can't
find
wait.
the era when. Oh, I'm sure. It's just like hearing someone describe their dreams to you. It's like, hooray. So this guy, a
Yeah.
little screaming meat man in a bowl. Amazing, I said to myself. This picture.
Like that most of the picture is just a reflection of the iPad screen.
Oh, sorry, Ben. You can see that?
Yeah.
So I fed it all of my artwork and said, make a picture based off of this stuff. And that's kind of what it came up with. Um, but you'll notice, I think anyway, you would agree that the art that it made when I was feeding it my photographs doesn't look like general AI art. It looks like, something different. This little guy, it's probably, like I said, probably not as interesting to you. But for me, I could feed this in and look at it over and over and over again and
Everybody's
be
got to
like,
have a
this is
hobby.
this is amazing. Right. Um, I feel as though in the future, that's going to be a lot of what we deal with is just us sitting around. Oh, so this is another thing that you could do. You can feed it. So I just drew this picture, right? This is a oh great. That's you can't see that. It's a lady in a spaceship, right?
Yeah.
Line drawing. And then I fed it that, and then I said a woman at a spaceport, right? And it did this drawing, which is really, pretty
It's a little
interesting.
different than
It's
just
sort
a
of
line
close.
drawing.
And then it did this one,
A little bit of color added to that one. Again,
and
my
then
apologies for anybody just listening to
this
this
one.
on the podcast.
Yeah, you get the idea. But again, if I'm not selling this, if I'm just looking at these images over and over and going, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Who
You
are you
know,
hurting? Who are you really
at the
hurting?
time, at the time, I didn't think that I was really hurting anybody.
Yeah.
And again, but my child, younger than me,
One would
rightfully
hope.
said, yeah, younger me, her whole life, younger than me.
Will always be
Um,
younger than me.
he was the one who said,
Till
well,
I die.
the thing that's hurting, or the thing that it's hurting, is that you're paying Midjourney this money, but the people who drew the things that they trained their AI on didn't get paid anything.
Yeah.
They should rightfully be getting some of that fee.
Some of
And
that
the and the
30
the
bucks a month.
argument that I some of that $30 a month from all the different people. And the thing that I argued was there are so many images it's trained on that there's no way it works.
Yeah.
It's an untenable situation. It's an unenforceable law. There's no money to be made, by an artist that way. And she said, well, then, if there's no way for it to be done ethically, why are you supporting it? And I
Right.
was like, who are you? What happened? How did? But
Why did I have to raise an ethical child?
I couldn't find the flaw in the argument though. I was like, okay, you're right. And so now I just draw stuff on my own, uh, and it's not as fun. I don't get the instant gratification, and my skill isn't as high as that
And
of the
you don't have
picture machine.
the addict's brain. You're not trying to hide what you're doing from your child who thinks it's wrong.
No, no. I mean, I do have an addict's brain. I do think about ways that I can, like, can I go to her and say, well, hey, because I tried it. I was like, hey, lawsuit got dropped, and she's like, okay, that just means that the courts aren't fair. I'm like, okay. Um, the one thing is that I can use Adobe's. Adobe has one, Adobe Firefly,
Yeah.
that only uses things that are licensed by Adobe, but it's not as good. It doesn't do the right things. So it's not it's like I haven't done methadone or heroin, but it's like It's like the thing that I would do
Adobe
because I can't
Firefly,
get the
the
stuff I want.
methadone of image
Yeah.
generation.
So, but there's tons of other stuff to do there. I can listen to podcasts. I can watch TV.
Play your
It's
video
just that
games.
if
Learn math on
yeah.
Duolingo.
Oh, by the way, I think I mentioned this the honor system in Baldur's Gate 3, or the honor playthrough. The way that you do it, you only have one life, and when your character dies, it dies, and that's it. That's where you end. Honor mode. That's what it's called.
I haven't heard of it.
I stopped playing in honor mode because I just realized
Kept
to
dying.
myself, one of the fun things in a video game is that you die, but then you can keep playing.
Yeah.
That's actually a selling point. So,
Yeah.
but I am no longer playing Paul Goody, the character based on me. I'm now playing a character called Pook, Pook, who is a little thief guy. And I'm playing just with myself. I don't have a party, and I'm a sneaky guy. I sneak around.
Playing with
It's
yourself. What did you say?
Yeah, exactly. I masturbate, man, all the time. Can't stop it.
It's my sexual harassment for my lone freelance lifestyle.
Call back. I'm trying to get work
Last
done.
week.
Get out of my office.
Get into my car.
Friend of the podcast, Andy, got me a button that says something. It's I don't know. It's a pro masturbation button, which I appreciate. I appreciate him getting for me, but it is one of those things of like, oh, thanks, that's great. I won't be putting this anywhere that
Except here.
others can see it. Yeah, exactly. I'll hold it over here. Hey, no. Do you see John McKenna ever? Like, is
I
he?
run into him every once in a while.
Please, the next time you see him, tell him that I still think about and appreciate his character from ATF of Burlesque.
Oscar amazing.
Oscar amazing. The mayor, I think,
Something
or
like
he
that.
he was like a mayor if he wasn't a mayor.
I recently, speaking of ATF, I recently just digitized a bunch of tapes for Tom Wisely and edited together the show
Oh
for
wow!
ATF.
Was
And
there enough footage to make a good?
there was footage. I wouldn't call it
Edit?
good. I mean, it's
Yeah,
2000, so it was actually a mix of like House Left was mini DV and House Right was Super 8. You know, so
yeah.
when you cut back and forth, it's the same performance, right? And there are two cameras, so you can cut back and forth, but the quality
It's
difference is
jarring.
obviously
Also,
different.
yeah,
And yeah, it's garbage, right?
and the
So
audio
the audio,
wasn't.
yeah, no, the audio is terrible. There were DAT tapes in the grocery bag of old media that Tom handed off to me, and I actually
Yeah,
did borrow a DAT player from AJ to because I thought, oh, I don't remember this happening, but I thought, oh, maybe they had like proper microphones and recorded
yeah.
us. No, these DAT tapes contained. I don't know why they were labeled ATF. I don't know why they were in this bag, but maybe they were recorded over. Maybe it's something else. But yeah, in camera audio, it's all garbage. But there's a document of the show,
Yeah,
and for
and
all the good times we had in that year of making it, it was
yeah.
fun, but also painful to revisit.
But I'm cool, right? Did you record? Do you have a record of I'm throwing these cigarettes at you, not distributing them to you?
Yeah.
That's great. That was my
Was
my
that your
favorite.
line, your contribution to the script?
That was my favorite. Well, they were concerned because you can't actually
Right. And
give cigarettes
those
out.
were actual cigarettes that we were throwing into the audience
Yeah,
because that's the.
and
I talk about that show every once in a while because I don't know if you probably remember this. In the very beginning of the show, we're hanging off of the light grid. Other like Kayana, Ron, Paul, Budritis, and I are like Chris McDonald, I think was one of them, are like, we climb these ropes up to the grid, and there's like four of us, and we're like swinging from pipe to pipe, and then we jump down, and it's just this chaos in the beginning of the show. And I like talking to people and saying, like, so do you know how we tested the grid to make sure it would hold? We just did it. That's how we tested the grid
Yeah,
to make sure it would hold all of us. We did it, and it didn't fall down. So good
yeah,
for us.
yeah. So
Fringe Theater in the year 2000.
yeah, I messed up my foot climbing onto one of the air ducts to jump down.
Yeah.
I like actually um every once in a while my foot will just pop. Um and here's the funny thing, it's the front part of the foot, like the part that you would kick a soccer ball with.
Yeah.
Like
Did
one
you just
half and the other
jam
half.
it into a light duct or something? Or
I don't know what happened. I don't know how it worked out, but
one of my favorite lines of Oscar Amazing, when you were down one of the holes in the ceiling, he yells out, "Sonia, pull him up!" And then you get pulled up into the ceiling, and he's like, "It's good to know the fly crew."
yeah, yeah. Um oh yeah, but yeah, one of the things was that they were concerned because we couldn't give out cigarettes. And so I was like, what if I just mention that we're not actually handing these out, that I'm just throwing them at people?
Right. Oh,
And
I'm sure
that was
that's
good
legally
enough.
binding. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's how the show works.
Yeah.
Again, we bring it up to not just the light grid thing, but the in one of the rehearsals, Tom had, okay, now you stand on his shoulders, now you stand on his shoulders. Okay, now just fall forward. And they're like, what do you mean?
Yep.
And he's like,
And don't
just fall
break
forward.
anything.
And then, yeah. And then they're like, okay, we're not doing that again. No one wanted to do it
Yeah.
again. Which
We
was,
did have actors break bones during that process.
did we really?
Yeah, Susan Sagala, I think, broke her ankle and was in a boot.
Oh,
I think throughout the show, maybe. I'll have to go back and look. I don't remember. I know that, like, we kind of expected Susan to drop out of the show after she broke her foot. But she was a trooper, stuck with it.
yeah. This is, I mean, not to, liken ATF or Burlesque to this, but it is kind of lower budget martial arts places that were built around a charismatic guy who didn't really know what he was doing, but
Our own
everyone was
Cobra
like,
Kai.
um, that was another thing that would happen, is that there would be people at the martial arts place I would go to who were in casts, who had like black eyes and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and they're like, it's just part of the situation.
It's
Um,
part of the agreement, man.
so when Fight Club came out, I was like, this is possible. People were like, there's no way this would happen. Oh no, this person based, it's a documentary, it's not a
Yeah.
um, fantasy, as it were. So yeah, I mean, I grew up in rural Illinois. People would fight for fun. That is a thing that they would just do. Is they would just
Yeah.
be
What
in
else are you
somebody's
gonna do in
backyard and
rural
punch each
Illinois?
other. Try to outrun the cops in cars, which they did, which was also crazy. But yeah, it's still, Ben. It boggles my mind. The
Boggles it.
people who grew up on the Dukes of Hazzard and running from cops in your supercharged car and things like that, suddenly
Your
becoming, you
bootlegging
know,
car.
Law and Order and all that. Right? You went from a bootlegging car to a bootlicking car. What happened to you? You guys. It is true though. I mean, I don't know what it was,
I
but
mean,
they all of a sudden.
you, that's a blanket
I'm
statement. I don't imagine. I'm sure there are some cops out there who did grow up watching Dukes of Hazzard and probably, did maybe felt that the Duke boys were the bad guys in the
I
show,
guess so.
even
I
though
don't
they
know. I
were.
mean, I'm the snitch. I'm the teacher's pet growing up. I'm the one who should be,
the cop in this.
all for the
You want to
police
be
stage.
Roscoe P. Coltrane?
Oh no, no, no! I know. I'm the guy who just points to Roscoe and says, "They went that way, sir." That's me. That's my job.
In that
Which I
voice.
yeah. Oh.
I
Um.
loved Dukes of Hazzard as a
I
kid, and
I
the
I
Sunday
think
block of Dukes of Hazzard and Knight Rider were great.
I might have mentioned to you that I had a Dukes of Hazzard OC, as the kids say. My character's name was Hey Duke. He spelled it Hay, and I wrote it as a kid. The idea is that people would go, "Hey Duke," and he'd go, "What, me?" And that was like his catchphrase, I guess. But the idea also, he rode in the trunk of the General Lee. That was the idea, is that he would be in the trunk of the car. Um, and here's the other thing: in my fantasy, he was also a kid, right? So my
Because you
joke,
were a
or
kid when
my
you wrote it, right?
right, my thought was that, yeah, Hey Duke was just a kid that they kept in the trunk of the General Lee the entire time, which is crazy.
Landing some of
Um,
those jumps must have really smarted
yeah,
if you're in the trunk.
exactly.
Guessing not a
Yeah,
lot of insulation back there.
I'm okay. Hey guys.
Can I get a
Oh,
sandwich?
yeah. So I didn't mean to do anything. That kind of. I think that was the thing, is that he would be the first one to surrender if anything went bad, and he would. I can't believe that this was a fantasy of mine, but the idea was that 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 Boss Hog, Roscoe P. Coltrane, and Enos liked him. He was the Duke that Ira was like, "Well, you did a good job."
The good Duke.
Uh, and then he would tell them about Jesus. I really think that was my dream, and that they would become Christians. That was my
Wow.
whole.
Well, I mean, you did
Yeah,
have a Lutheran father growing
I
up.
did. I did. I found recently, I got a whole bunch of a folder with a lot of things that I used to draw, and one of it was what I want to be when I grow up, and it was a pastor. I drew
Yeah.
myself behind a pulpit and stuff like that. But it is really interesting. My first mom, adopted mom,
Yeah.
Barbara, who died when I was 3, um, like wrote out, like, I not only have crayon drawings I did as a kid, but wrote
Right.
out what it was that I drew. It's really amazing.
Picture's worth
This
about a
is
dozen words.
this is a green monster with a purple tongue. But there's one, we've talked about this before, that my sister used to like hit me and scratch me and stuff like that.
Right.
Um,
Boy, your
and
siblings were terrible to you.
I have pictures that I drew that have captions like, or titles like, "This is Mary at Mary is mad." Period. Mary isn't allowing Paul to play. Period. Like, I would draw pictures of her not letting me play,
Right. Yeah.
and I would show them to my mom, and then she would write that down. Just crazy stuff. Interesting
I
things.
mean, there's that makes sense. You hear a number of stories where a kid draws something in class, a disturbing image of some sort, and the parents are called
Mhm.
in to make sure, like, hey, are things
Yeah,
okay at home? You know,
exactly. Yeah, that didn't happen in
in
the 70s.
1982.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so speaking of, this is going to come out after the holidays already, but I just wanted to say it was a kind of a controversial thing of what was going to happen with the family. Um,
Oh,
as far as um, if you'll remember last Christmas, my
I
parents
gave you my
got
heart.
my sister a hotel room
Yeah.
for Christmas. She didn't want to be at the house.
And there was a
No
whole thing
one.
about whether or not you guys were gonna actually go.
What? Yeah, and then we did go, and we brought presents for her, and she asked my parents to return them to us because she didn't want presents from us. It was a weird thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
this Christmas, we are going to, and this is great, right? So I'm all stressed out. I'm like, oh, what's going to happen? Is it going to be one of those situations where, we go out there again? We don't necessarily like going. So Betty, as you know, and I are both uh, on the autism spectrum, and uh, grandma and grandpa's house is boring, and we sit there and we, get anxious, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Uh, this Christmas, going to Golden Corral, which is a buffet, eating at Golden Corral, and then going on our separate ways.
There you go.
Perfect,
Something for everybody.
perfect. I told them it was great.
Yeah.
Um, Mary's still not coming, which not that she listens to the podcast, she wouldn't.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, do it, but it's the big thing is this. I feel as though I can go my entire life and not the parents. My parents are very religious people. They believe that you should forgive people, and that it's your duty as a person of faith to forgive people who have wronged you, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
I don't subscribe to their religion. I can go my entire life and be like, you've never apologized to me about how you treated me when we were kids, and attempted to murder me at least once. I'm I'm
Yeah.
okay with
We're done
with
here.
not talking to you
Yeah.
at this point. Although I will say this, I've mentioned on this podcast at one point in time that a friend of mine, after watching A Glitch in the Matrix, you know, texted me. We had this weird exchange about how they thought that the filmmakers took advantage of me and
Oh.
that I'd better have gotten paid and all this
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so I do a D&D group out here. I DM. I know, play a different game. Why don't you? There are tons of other indie role playing games, folks. I know about them. This
Wizards of
is
the
a
Coast
this
just
is
laid
a
off a ton of people.
Yep. This is a which is dumb because the money going away wasn't from Wizards of the Coast. It was from Mattel's other branches. Anyway, that's another
Anyway.
story. Um, I I've I have tons of friends who play other games. They just don't live in my town, so I do, and they aren't my friends from high school. So they like to play D&D. I play D&D with them, etc. So anyway, this guy was in town, and my other friend was like, "Hey, this guy's in town. Would you mind hanging out?"
And
And
you
I
like cut
said,
him off when he gave you that phone call, right?
he wrote to me. He wrote to me. And he said that he was sorry. He understood if I didn't want to talk to him, and I was like,
Right.
yeah. But when he was like, this guy's in town, all of that went away. All of, and it could be because I'm in therapy now or whatever, but I was like, yeah, I would really like to see him. Saw him. Everything was great.
Good.
It was really good.
Time heals some
So
wounds.
yeah, now, I feel much better. Um, because yeah, a lot of that was just ego on my part, right?
Yeah.
You know, um,
Well, it's hard to tell. It's hard to take somebody saying that they know
also
better
we
than
were
you in terms of something that you're doing.
Yeah, and plus this is during COVID. It was all over IM, etc. That's not really us, right? That's not really,
Right.
we weren't really having a conversation about it. We were typing back and forth to each other, which is different. Which is different. I still do it every single time. Anytime I say which is, I always add that. Can't help it. Um,
Bring
let's
that up to
see.
your
I
therapist.
Oh yeah. Uh,
Oh, she knows.
I'm sure. I'm sure there's a reason. Man, I gotta say, it's really good having Jennifer there to talk about stuff. Oh, this is something. One of the things in my OCD is driving. The way that I feel when I drive, or my concerns about driving, etc.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my therapist about it, and there's so when I don't know if I did this when you were in the car and driving, or not. I do this with Betty and some other people. When we turn left and there's another car coming, I'll like flinch.
I don't
Do I
remember
do
you
that?
flinching. I don't
Okay.
remember you flinching when you were driving and I was in the car.
What if I was riding in the car with you? Would I flinch then?
I don't recall you
Okay.
flinching. It's possible you did. I don't know. Wasn't really paying.
So
I was
so it
paying
is,
more paying attention to the oncoming car than to you.
yeah. So it is one of these situations, one of the things that I'm dealing with. And so I'm talking to my therapist about it, and I'm like, yeah, every once in a while, a car comes, and I'll like flinch out of the way or whatever. And Betty then says, yeah, plus you swear a lot. And here's the thing, I do not remember swearing while I'm driving.
Yeah.
And then when she said it, I was like, oh, wait, yeah, okay, I think I do that. And then later on, I was at this concert that Betty was giving, and Jennifer said, will you stop doing that? I'm like, what? Doing what? And she's like, you're talking to yourself pretty loudly. I was not tracking that I was doing that. And I was like, what was I saying? And she's like, I don't know. I was trying to listen to the music, not to what you were saying. But it was just weird because I was not aware I was doing it. So these
It's
are a couple of times when I don't feel like I'm in total control of what I'm doing,
it.
basically.
I mean, I think that's also pause. I mean, I'm sure that behavior has something to do with the autism, but I don't want to give a blanket like only autistic people do this.
Yeah,
I was messing around with a phone mount on my car once, and so I would record. It's like a dash cam, right? I would record going
yeah,
someplace, and then what I did once, maybe even a couple times, is I turned the camera around and I recorded me driving, right? And when I watched that back, I realized I talk a lot when I drive, right? And I don't even realize it, And
okay, yeah,
it's like it's not quite monologuing, but it's one of those things where you're in this environment, and this is probably where the difference is between like somebody who's not diagnosed autistic and somebody who is, where you're in an environment where you are not being heard by anybody else,
yeah,
right? And it's that I probably
yeah,
do it at home I almost swore here all the time because I swear a lot in my house,
yeah.
and not even realize it. I was actually at Annex recently, and somebody was there, and I thought they had left. They came in, talked to me in the office. I thought they had left. Turns out they were just sitting in the house, which was dark, just having like a quiet moment in the house. And I like walked into the I walked out of the office into towards the restroom, and into the restroom. And while I was in the restroom, they came in and used the other one. And that's when I realized that hadn't left the building half an hour ago when I thought they were gone. And I'm like, oh dear God, did I
Huh.
say something about them? Just like because my internal monologue becomes external when I think I'm alone.
There was somebody I used to. I don't talk about work. This is a past job, though. Somebody I used to work with who would hit the mute button on their phone and yell at the person that they were talking to.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is more trust for a mute button
Yeah.
than I have.
That mute button's doing a lot of work.
I
I was
mean, I think I mentioned this before on the podcast. When you are on Skype or Zoom on your phone or Teams,
or anything.
there's a microphone, and when you hit pause on the microphone, a line goes through the mic
Yeah.
to indicate that it's muted. When you are on a phone call on your iPhone, there is a microphone with a line through it, and when you touch it, it turns white and it shows that you're muted. But if you're used to one of the other programs that just has a mic with a line through it, you might use the bathroom while on a call with
This
50
sounds
some
like
odd
something that
people.
actually happened.
And then you'll get a note saying you've been muted by the host.
Yeah.
And then you're like, well, crap.
Well, crap. Um, I was working at a job. I can say I don't care. Bellevue Cadillac, and I was in the parts department, and there were a couple of sales reps surrounding the counter that I was at, and they were on speakerphone with somebody, like a
Yeah,
rep somewhere wasn't part of our company, part of another company, like a vendor of ours. And one of the sales reps was like having a bit of an argument with this gal on the other line. And I could tell, I knew this guy, so I could tell he was like trying to be polite, but he was still getting really, I didn't like this guy, so I
Yeah.
don't mind telling this story. And
Yeah.
so the phone call, like, he comes to an end. So they're on speakerphone, right? So he picks up the handset, puts the handset back down,
Oh
thinking
no.
that is
Oh
gonna hang
no.
up, and then proceeds to
Yeah.
call her the worst. Like, not the worst names, but
Oh.
he proceeds to swear at her in her direction, like effing
Oh.
B. I can, she's such a and like big, and then she's like,
Oh.
and then she just continues the conversation. Like, I'm sorry you're having a hard time with this agreement that we had, blah, blah. So we were all like,
Yeah.
oh, dude, you screwed up hard. I
Dude.
still kind of courage. You know what? I hated this guy. I'm kind of happy that he kind of put his foot in his mouth and embarrassed himself in this way, because he was not a very good person. But
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
it's a funny anecdote that I get to tell. And with
Oh
that,
man. Hey, speaking of that, hey, well, Ben, thanks a lot. Now, for those of you who have sat through this whole thing with us, you know that we are now entering our holiday break. So, Ben, I wish you a good holiday break, even though it's already happened. Um, and I will talk to you more
you
later.
too, Paul.
Until then, keep it wrong.
Happy holidays and Toyota-thon and Honda days, Paul Goody, and I hope that you keep it wrong as well. I'll talk to you later.
Happy how's it holla happening days.
How's it holla
Ben,
happening?
how's it holla happening?
All
All
right.